TW3. My name is William Mayhem Michaels.
And this is the scientist, Carl Schrupfer. And today we're here with TW3. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So TW3, before we get started, why don't you tell the people that are listening a little bit about yourself?
So, my name is TW3, go by the 80s Baby. That's my moniker. I've been wrestling. Next week, Thursday, should be 18 years. Currently, still traveling all over the United States. One of the biggest ventures I'm part of right now is OVW. Been down there for over a year and a half. Cutting my teeth and learning TV and doing a lot of TV matches, pay-per-view matches, things like that. And basically learning and growing more as a professional wrestler. So, yeah, that's me as a whole. I really, just like anybody else, man, that's in this business, I'm just trying to make it and just doing, everything a day at a time. It's all I do now too. As of late, I don't have a regular job outside of wrestling like other independent workers do. I just wrestle. I just travel Wednesday through Sunday, and I make towns and I pay my dues. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So, taking it all the way back 18 years, even further, before you became a wrestler, who first introduced you to wrestling?
All right, so this is my favorite part of podcasts. People ask me this question because I get to enlighten a lot of people who don't know who I am and what brought me into wrestling, how this all happened. So, my uncle was Kirby Puckett. Baseball. Kirby Puckett's one of the most famous baseball players in out of Minnesota. He's a Hall of Famer, and he was really big into wrestling. And my uncle was the one that introduced me to it. Watching Clash of the Champions one time at his house, I saw Sting and Ric Flair. This was in the 80s. And I just became really enthused in what I saw. Sting's bright, blonde hair and his face paint, it just got me. And then, kind of as it went on from there, I saw guys like The Undertaker, The Ultimate Warrior, things like that. I was just more and more enthused in what I was seeing. And I said it to him once. I said, you know what, Uncle, one day I'm going to be a professional wrestler. And, for a kid growing up like me, so small and so tiny, back then it was a 6'6", 300-pound business. So it probably wasn't so realistic. But I always thought I was going to be a wrestler, and I just happened to meet the right people at the right time to get into it. So that's how I got into it.
So what was one of the things that really spoke out to you about wrestling that kind of really garnished your interest?
The characters, man. Like I said, going back to the Sting and the Ric Flair thing. Ric Flair had those, fancy robes, and he comes out and making all these loud sounds, and Sting's booing with him, but he's got this face paint. Yeah. And it's just man, it was one of the greatest things I think I'd ever seen as a kid. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, you see a lot of things as kids, but this to me was the icing on the cake. So it was definitely the characters, and I was just drawn to it. I didn't know anything about storytelling and, the storylines. I just liked the characters. That's all it was to me.
That bigger than life characters that they were putting on at that time. I know they were all
Absolutely.
You never knew what you were going to see, especially in WWE back then. But it was definitely a good time.
Yeah. So you talk about these bigger than life characters, and grew up as a smaller guy. What kind of sparked your journey into wrestling, and how did you decide to start training as a wrestler?
So, sparking my journey, dumb kid, 12 years old, had a bunch of friends, decided they wanted to build a makeshift wrestling ring in their backyard, and we all wanted to be wrestlers. That's kind of how it went for me. And that kind of went through high school. Then I went to college and I stopped just because I was trying to obviously do my education. And at that point, I was I'm never going to be a professional wrestler. I didn't know anything about independence. I only knew ECW, WWF, WCW, you know what I mean? And then obviously New Japan and stuff like that. But the dream was still there, but it was the older I got, the less of a reality it was. Until I met Hornswoggle, Joe Imposto, in a place called Park Central in Appleton, it's a nightclub. And I was really enthused in him because he was a breakman. And he was telling me, yeah, he's a professional wrestler. And at the time, I had met some guys I was doing some other backyard stuff with, but I didn't really, wasn't taking it serious. I was just still yeah, this is my dream, but I'm not going to be able to do it. And he explained to me about the independents And I told him what I was doing, and he sent some guys out one time to see me wrestle. And those guys came and they said, "Hey, Dylan says it's time for you to get trained. So leave this stuff and come like do it for real." And that's kind of how it happened.
It's pretty cool that, from early in life, having family that are crazy athletes to then somehow run into somebody that's larger than life in another industry, and somehow that pulling you into now you're starting to chase your dreams for real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that was a fortunate thing for me. Like, you don't always get to meet the people who can help you actually chase your dreams, and I did, and that was cool because like I said, at that point, I didn't think wrestling was a reality for me. I knew nothing about independent wrestling. So when I found out about it and he told me he was a wrestler, at first I'm like, oh yeah, midget wrestling, that's cool. I gotta go check that out. And it wasn't disrespectful to him as far as what I was trying to say. It was just like, I didn't know what he meant. And then he's talking about independent wrestling. He's saying, there's a company in Green Bay and you live here and it's only a 25-minute drive and things like that. And I'm like, okay. So, and like I said, he came and they checked some stuff out. He sent some other guys one day and they was like, hey, Dylan said, leave this crap and come get trained. And I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what was like, as you were starting to like really train and do more than just doing like backyard wrestling type stuff, and you started really understanding the independent wrestling scene, what surprised you the most?
I think what surprised me the most is like how hard it actually really was. Like how hard it was on your body, the technique of what you're doing, learning how to actually take a bump. I think the wrestling business itself really just like, it made me actually go, okay, there's more to this than what I see on TV. Like, there's a lot more to this. And I'm going to have to be really serious about doing it if I really want to do it, and long term. I think the fact that when I first got trained, the first thing they told me is if you want to make money in this business, don't think you're going to do it because you'll never make it. I was like, oh, you do this for free? And then it was explained, no, it's not that it's for free, but like, don't come into this business thinking that you're just going to make a bunch of money, because it doesn't happen with everybody. You know what I mean? That's lightning in a bottle for a lot of people. So I think learning about the business and understanding it more and kind of figuring out that, hey, if I'm going to actually do this, like I got to be super serious about it. I've got to be in the gym. I have to make sure that I'm taking care of my body and I'm doing things the right way. And I think knowing that it was more than what I thought it was on TV, I think that made me go, okay, so let's do it. Because I'm one of those people, if I put my mind to something, I'm going to just go jump into it and swing for the fences. So once I learned all that, I was like, all right, I'm in. Let's go.
So when you first got into the business, right, what was like your friends and family's response to you entering the actual wrestling business, and who was your biggest supporter?
No one. So at that point, my uncle had already passed away. And so, like, he probably would have been my biggest supporter, still probably as to this day, wherever he is. But my mom was absolutely not. She goes, why? She goes, you're college educated. Why do you think this is something that you want to do? Why do you want to hurt yourself? Why, like, it's a show. It's all a show. And then as I explained to her more how it wasn't a show and it was really physical, it was even more. No. My dad, however, he wasn't the biggest supporter of it, but he didn't tell me not to do it. One reason was because I did do wrestling since I was in 6th grade. So I did regular collegiate wrestling. So I already had a background in grappling. And I also had a background in Taekwondo. So striking was there already. Grappling was there already. He's like, go for it. Try it out. See if you like it. So just be careful. But my mom, no. My mom was my biggest hater. Let's just say that. And to this day, she still doesn't like it. She's been to 3 shows ever. And I've been doing this, 18 years next week, right? So 3 shows, if that tells you anything. But I guess my biggest supporter would have been my dad, because he was the only one that didn't say, yeah, just no. You know what I mean? Mom, that's how moms are, so.
Yeah. And do you feel like your mom being that way kind of motivates you more to say, hey, I know I have a college degree, but I can really make a living doing this? Does it kind of push that?
Yeah, so absolutely, because, like, anybody, right? Anybody tells you can't do something. What's the first thing you want to do? Okay, motherfucker, watch this, right? Like, seriously, that's me, 100%. Like, whenever somebody tells me I can't do something, okay, watch this. Right. You know what I mean? And that's just even with OVW. A lot of people are like, oh, you can't go down there. You're not gonna be able to do anything. They're not gonna do it with you. Blah blah blah. All right, motherfucker, let's go. Let me show you what I'm gonna do down there. Let me show you how I adapt. Let me show you how I learn, and let me show you what I end up doing. And that's, you know what I mean. That's with anything I do. That was with college. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I played soccer in college. I went on a full ride scholarship for playing soccer in college, and like it was always all as a freshman you can't even if you're on a full ride you can't make the varsity team. Okay, watch this, bitch. Watch what I do, and that's exactly what I did. And I was on varsity all 4 years. So like that's just what it is, man.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to be very driven to be able to do what you're doing. Like you said, like going down and doing something like OVW, especially, you being from Green Bay, that's to make that travel on a regular basis. You have to have that mentality of, I'm going to prove to everybody who I am, and I've got the things to do it. So I think that's really cool that you have that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's a 16-hour round trip. You know what I mean? And for a while, like, we were driving down here, and then we were turning around right after TV on Thursday and driving right back. So it wasn't like we were going down and we would be there for a few days. We literally would come down on a Thursday, and then we'd stay, do TV, and then drive right back, just to be home to work our regular job at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, if that's not drive, I don't know what is.
Right,
Not a lot
right.
of people are going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we talk about you working, doing this OVW and all these other different shows that you do as a wrestler, like, what do you pull from for like your persona and who you are as in the ring as a wrestler?
So, to be honest with you, I used to do the Kofi Kingston thing, right? Like, everybody wanted me to be their Kofi Kingston. I had dreads, I looked like Kofi, mannerisms like Kofi. I'm not Jamaican, right? Kofi's not even really Jamaican. So that didn't work for me. It worked for so long because it did what it needed to do for promoters to be able to get people in the door to see me. But like during COVID, there was a big like epiphany I had. And when I had this epiphany, it was, what can I do to get over with the crowd and still be me? And it was just literally just me saying, well, let's see. I grew up in the 80s. I, listened to hip hop 80s music. I listened to R&B 80s music, pop music, stuff like that. I dressed like they did in the 80s. Okay, why don't you just call yourself the 80s baby and just be you and turn yourself up to 1,000? And that's really what I did. Like, I tell people all the time, this isn't a gimmick. Like, this is me. The 80s baby really is me. But I just turn it up when I'm in the ring, when I'm on a show. Like, that's 100% me. If you get in my car, you're listening to Sirius Satellite Radio, I'm listening to 80s music. That's what's in my car. You know what I mean? If you were in the gym with me and you could listen to what's in my earphones, it's 80s music. It's 100% what I do. Whether it's pop, R&B, rock, hip hop, it's all 80s. So I just decided to be me, man. And when I did that, more doors opened for me than I ever thought possible. Because I wasn't trying to be somebody I wasn't.
I feel like when you're trying to be somebody else, like, everybody notices, whether it's in wrestling or otherwise. And as soon as you kind of like wash that away and just think about like, how do I do me to like the highest degree, you start seeing success and people like want to be around you more and stuff like that. I feel like every facet of life, the more you embrace yourself, the better you are. Yeah,
and it's 100% true. Like, if you embrace who you are as a person and you can completely just be you, like, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do in life. Like, if you're true to yourself, you can't be stopped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wrestlers are super busy, and they spend a lot of time traveling, spend a lot of time in the gym and stuff like that. What do you like to do, like, for a hobby outside of wrestling?
So I used to have a lot of hobbies. Like, I used to play like bar league softball. I play pool. I like to play darts. You know what I mean? Things like that. For a while, I was getting tattoos, but now I'm too busy. I need to get back in there and get some skin therapy. I go get massages. Like, my body hurts. I gotta go get those done, chiropractic things. Like, my hobbies so much aren't what they used to be anymore. And honestly, I'm a 14-year-old son. So honestly, my hobbies all revolve around him now. So Basically anything that's doing hanging out with my kids, hanging out with friends, like I said, something cool, things like that. I like to go out and have some drinks, things like that. But otherwise, really, it's just been focus, travel, work out. So, because I mean, again, drive, right? I have this drive and I'm trying to go to a certain place. And the only way I'm going to get there is to be as driven as I am and make sure my focus is right where it needs to be. Yeah, there's time to have fun and everything, but I've done a lot of that. I did a lot of that in my younger years. I'm driven for this one goal, and I want to do what I can as long as I have left in this business. So,
yeah, that's pretty sick.
Otherwise, like what method do your mayhem have? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I get it. You guys have a podcast. You guys probably have regular jobs too, families. I know you know what I mean? So, it doesn't matter what profession or what you're doing in your life as far as like how you make your money or how you make a living or what it is you can do outside for a hobby. You always have to have some type of like timetable and schedule put together. If you don't, like you're just running around like two in the head.
Right, yeah. I mean, especially I have a 13-year-old daughter, so I understand the whole having a kid as well, because that definitely stresses it out. But yeah, it's funny because I know you're probably the same way. It's like you're like, okay, today I'm gonna rest. I'm not really gonna focus so much on shit. But then the next thing you know, you're working, and you're like, fuck, how did I get here? Like that happens that happens to me and Carl all the freaking time, right? Exactly.
Like for instance, I own a company now in Green Bay. It's called Hybrid Wrestling Entertainment. I'm also opening a school. I bought the Dojo of Pain, which is where guys like Ken Anderson and Shane Hills, all train. And like now I have all those things going on. And some days it's like, I'm just gonna hang out. I'm not gonna do anything. I'll relax. Then I'll get this building. I want to do this. Like there's never a dull moment in my life, and I don't get that. That's because I say that I probably should give myself. But at the end of the day, I know it's gonna be rewarding. You know, on some type of level.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm gonna bring up our sponsor, Doobie. Guys, it's an energy drink without the crash. And I'll tell you what, it tastes pretty damn good too.
Hell yeah. And you can get it for 10% off using the code across the ring and get yourself some. So we were talking a bit about your life outside of wrestling, and before the podcast I had taken a look at your page, and I noticed you actually have a second Instagram account for a cat of yours.
Yeah, so my ex-wife and I, she worked at the Humane Society, and we did a lot of fostering and rescuing of animals. And one of them that we rescued was Nola Granola, which is basically became my cat. Nola had 4 legs, but one was it was crushed. She was going to have an amputation anyway. And we had already had a bunch of cats. And I was like, no more cats. And she brought this cat home, and I'm like, I'm absolutely in love with this cat. And the cat ended up loving me. Yeah, I love that cat. If you look under my scripture of my phone, it's my cat. It's my cat in a bunch of different positions. Sunglasses, hats, things like that. Like, I love my cat. But yeah, Nola Granola on Instagram. Go follow her. She's very special. And,
yes.
She's a cool cat. She's got more followers than a lot of people that I know. So it's crazy. I mean, it's rewarding though. That's awesome. And it's rewarding, right? It's not rewarding to rescue an animal, like, because animals need love too. Sometimes they just get shitty owners that don't want them. It's nice for them to be able to be picked up and, in a sense, to come to a loving family as opposed to what they're dealing with. So.
Yes. Yeah, and that too, like, so, I've got my dog here. His name is Kofi. He's actually named for Kofi Kick. It's kind of funny, the connection in there. So he's a little riled up today because of all the heat, but he's a good little puppy. So
yes, he is. I try to get Carl to make an Instagram for Kofi because I'm a huge fan of Kofi. I went to his house, and that was like the most gentle dog I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah. So
you gotta get that Instagram going, man.
Yes, no kidding. So as you were talking about, you mentioned that you recently bought a company and a school. You want to talk a little bit about, what you have kind of planned going on there, and a little bit about those two ventures?
Yeah, so the company started off with ACW, the original ACW. Then it expanded over to NWA Wisconsin. Then it turned into WCW, which is Wisconsin Professional Wrestling. Basically, it was around 25 years. And on its 25th year anniversary, to the day of, I decided to run the last show doing that because I was the booker for the last 2 years here. And I just knew that it was time for a change. And I approached the owner and I asked him, hey, can I buy it? He said yes. And basically, we closed the doors. So this entire summer we've been doing is revamping everything, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's a rebrand, but it's really not a rebrand because what I'm going to be doing with wrestling in Green Bay is totally different from what they've ever done. I'm going towards a different venture. I'm looking at different angles of how to put wrestling. I've done things that I've gotten us back into the Riverside Ballroom, which is a big mainstay for Wisconsin professional wrestling in NWA Wisconsin back in the day. I've gotten us sponsors that we used to have back in the day just by having these conversations and letting them know, like, hey, hybrid wrestling entertainment is coming. It's going to be something bigger and better than anything's ever been done in Green Bay. I've got a lot of good people behind me, Mike Mercury, who was one of the originators of ACW back in the day. And it's going to be good, man. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. And with the school, Shane Hills was the last owner of the Dojo of Pain until I bought it. And the reason that I bought it was because I knew Shane was just getting in that point where he just didn't want to be able, he didn't want to train kids anymore. And I knew that. And I knew that if it were in my hands, and with my business acumen, the things that I could help, like Jaded Arrow and Backwards Brown and Aaron Arsenal and Ragnar, those are the guys that are going to be able to train kids, and we're going to be able to pump out dojo kids like none other. Like they're going to be like what Shane did with like the Kens were out there, what Burke did with Ken. You know what I mean? And I moved it to Green Bay because Green Bay is more of a focal point for people who want to be a wrestler that don't want to drive 30 minutes to Shane's camp. Shane was in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin, a little bit past Green Bay, and a lot of people complained about having to go there. So if it's in inner city Green Bay, you're going to get a lot more people with a lot more will and determination to actually want to wrestle to come to those schools. So, yeah, it's going to be called the Hybrid Dojo, the Hybrid Dojo of Pain. And basically, we're opening soon. We got this building that I've been looking at. That's all. I'll be doing other things too. Like there's a kids class that I'm going to do on Sundays, and we're going to teach kids wrestling, but not the full art of wrestling. We'll teach them rolls, we'll teach them lockup, we'll teach them things like that. You know what I mean? Because kids out there, they have a lot of energy, and they want to like have that outlet to disperse that energy. And
yeah,
there's a lot of need for it in Green Bay, especially where you can do something like that and not only help these kids, but you're helping your community as well. You're taking these kids off the streets, and you're giving them something else to do. So yeah, that's
really cool.
What I'm doing right now.
I really wish that existed when I was a kid, because I would have for sure been begging my parents to sign up for something like that. So that's really cool that you're going to be offering something like that. So yeah, I think that that's really cool. I think it's really exciting. Hopefully, as some dates come out for your upcoming shows, I'd love to be up there for that. I'm sure Will would love to go as well.
I'll do it. I love
it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get the dates to you guys as soon as, I know what's going on. I've got the dates set up right now. It's more of I'm just waiting to see if I'm going to get the extra funding that I need to be able to do it up there. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So, it sounds like you got a lot of really exciting stuff going on. You're traveling all over for wrestling. You've got a company that you're starting up here, and you're taking on school. That's a lot of big things all at the same time, and I think that's really exciting. But, as we kind of talk about some of these different things, to kind of take it back to thinking about wrestling as a whole, what do you think is the best thing about professional wrestling?
Honestly, everybody's unique and different in their own way, right? And wrestling is a unique community. You guys know, being wrestling fans, there are fans that you don't even know are wrestling fans until you see on that show. Like, some of the biggest and most financial business owners are wrestling fans. But you'd never know it because they're in a suit and tie all day and they're in their office. then all of a sudden you look and you say, that's a guy that runs, and then he's in there and he's going just as crazy as the other one. As well, you got a 5-year-old kid here doing the same thing. It's a community that I've grown to love, and sometimes I've grown to hate. But all in all, like, wrestling as a whole, it's a community for me, man. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, fans that are fans are true fans. Like, I got people that, like, are fans of mine that they've traveled different states for me. And I'm like, dude, I'm just me. I'm a superstar. Like, having people go to Chicago and go all the way to Michigan for me, and I'm not talking lower Michigan, I'm talking upper Michigan. So now you're driving past Milwaukee, past Green Bay. You're going all the way up in the sticks to see me wrestle for 10 to 15 minutes. That's a testament to maybe who I am to these people as far as being like their hero. And that's cool to me, you know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, it's like, damn, dude, like, I'm nobody. I'm not on fucking TV. I don't do this, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Seth Rollins. I'm not a freaking Dolph Ziggler. I'm not those guys. But it's cool because, like, wrestling fans are true to what they are, and they're real fans. So I'd say community is the best thing going on right now in wrestling.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, I mean, that's certainly one of the reasons why we are here doing what we're doing, and why we were fans before that and all that is, you know, it is such a crazy community. And, you know, Will and I actually met on a wrestling cruise. We did the Jericho cruise, and that's how we met and how this podcast started. So, you know, it takes a crazy community to hop on a big boat for 4 days in the middle of the ocean and just do wrestling stuff.
Exactly.
But to go a little bit further in, like, what is one thing that you do that you think everyone else could do but they don't?
Something that I do that everybody else can do
but they don't.
I don't know, man. I talk to everybody. Like, I'll even sit and have conversations with people who I know, like, will come there and annoy me. But I do. I try and make sure that a fan knows that I appreciate them being there, no matter who they are, whether they're booing me, they're cheering me, whether they don't know what to think of. I have those conversations, and I show gratitude and appreciation. And there are a lot of wrestlers out there who are on the same level that don't do that because they think they're the shit. When in reality, they're actually the shits. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's honestly how it goes. Like, I'm just a really nice, personable person, so I can have those conversations with people, and I want them to know, like, hey, I appreciate you coming to these shows. Hey, I'll sit here and I'll sign these autographs for you. I give away a lot of free stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm just like everybody else. We got to make our money when we're selling merchandise. There's sometimes you can see in a kid's eyes, like, he really wants his signature because he thinks you're like, you know, top king shit. Okay, I'm gonna sign this autograph. And then his parents come by like, hey, I gotta, no, it's fine. It's like things like that, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people don't remember being a kid and being arrested and at a restaurant. Because they take time. Kids that are the ones that are always trying to get these autographs and actually do it, rather than just stumbling along. And there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, I think, you know, the thing is like, you know, we've been able to interact a few times. And in those interactions, you've always been a very personable person, and it's always been a delight to get to talk to you after shows and stuff like that. And, you know, when you ask around, everybody has, you know, such great opinions of you, and, you know, the way that you know, go about your business, people seem to really appreciate that. So it definitely shows. But so kind of in a similar vein, what is the thing that you know that you think everybody else should know?
As in what? Kind of lay that out for people a little bit more.
So I guess like life, wrestling, you know, like when you think about, you know, the Kofi, the things that you've learned over time. And all right, you gotta come out of here. Come on.
Kofi's a little excited. Kofi had a question.
That's the first time I've seen Kofi bark.
Yeah, he's getting antsy. But so basically more of like, what's like, you know, a lesson you've learned, or like a little piece of insight that's like really helped you that, you know, maybe you've seen, like, not everybody kind of has realized this, but it's something that you know really held on to as a thought?
Honestly, I would say that like hard work is rewarded, and nothing, good ever comes free. And what I mean by that is you're not gonna just get everything handed to you and expect, that it's gonna be the best thing for you. You can get things handed to you, but that's not always gonna be the best thing. You want to work hard to get to where you want it to be, and it doesn't matter what you do in life. You got to work hard to get there. And once you're there, that's more gratifying than anything. I've never had a handout, not once. I wouldn't. I've had people in the past tell me, "Oh, you got WWE tryouts and extra work because of this person." Okay, they may have told a certain person about me to get me looked at, but then I still have to be able to communicate with those people to come back. Because I've done a hella extra work with WWE. I've gotten a ton of tryouts. You know what I mean? It only takes once, and if somebody helped me get in the door, that's cool. But it's up to me to keep my foot there. I tell people all the time, look, I can bring you down to OVW, absolutely, and I can introduce you to the right people. It's up to you to keep your ass there. Like, I'll open the door, and you keep it open. You know what I mean? So, like, freebies are there. Freebies happen, but freebies don't get you where you're really trying to go in life. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, guys, that's going to be it for our show. TW3, we want to thank you once again, man, for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And before I let you go, you want to shout out your Instagram for anyone that's watching this podcast that isn't following you so they can follow you.
Yeah, it's going to be the_official_TW3 on Instagram there, and that's what I use the most, so follow that. That's awesome. The more followers there, the more likely I'll be there. And then also, I know we didn't touch on it too much, but before we go, everybody out there, September 13th, OVW does have a Netflix show coming out called The Wrestlers, and you guys should all definitely check that out. You get an inside look at what it's like to be part of the #1 company in wrestling right now. And I'll say that wholeheartedly and fully because what we do down there is totally different than what everybody else does on TV, and we're making a statement down there, and we're turning things around and turning it back into that OVW that it used to be. They're going to recognize that again, and they're going to see it for themselves.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've mentioned OVW a couple of times on our different shows. I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Absolutely.
And guys, once again, make sure you check out our past episodes if you haven't listened to them. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check out our Instagram. Also, make sure you check out our new shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees. We have 3 shirts up right now. We have another one we're working on. Make sure you check those out. And guys, remember, you never know who will be across the ring.